An open letter to Machiavellians. Machiavellians, you say that virtue is knowing what you must do and when you must do it to achieve the principal goal of every princedom, namely maintaining power. But I think there is another goal to governorship. That is stability. Extremes quickly lead to anarchy, and so you say virtue is the mean between two extremes. If so, stability is the strength to balance between those two extremes. Indeed, a prince must always be balancing multiple extremes at once: deceit and truth, love and fear, cruelty and mercy. But you are always leaning towards what you know to be good, the mean between those two: love and fear, cruelty and mercy, so that justice may prevail. But you compromise to maintain power. You compromise for the necessity of maintaining power. But does this compromise, this concession, compromise stability? What do I mean when I say stability? I mean a rock, the rock on which a prince must stand so as to... What do I mean when I say stability? I mean a rock on which a prince must stand to be a rock for his people, so that he can protect their property and his own. You do not build a kingdom upon sand. That is foolishness. Stability is commitment. It is a commitment to the good. Even Machiavelli recognized this, that you cannot commit to cruelty, lest you will lose your crown a tyrant. But he posited that you only need to appear to be good, merciful, and generous. Yet, outward stability, even if it cannot be true stability, requires an order within. The prince must have his intellect set like flint, and so as to guide his passions and prevent them, his desires, from blinding him to what must be done. No, stability is not a state of rest, but rather a constant state of exertion, balancing back and forth, maintaining the good. It is the virtue of balancing. It is the virtue of endurance through which we endure and weather temptations and trials. Yes, the virtue of a prince is in the mean. Too much mercy, and you will perpetuate disorder. Too much cruelty, and you will lose your crown. People will hate you, and you will hate yourself. Perhaps it is not in absolute. Perhaps it is not power which corrupts absolutely, but rather hatred. For hatred destroys stability. Look to Great Britain in the 1700s, trying to hold on to their colonies, but failing miserably. By turns being too merciful and then too cruel. By mercy, they cultivated pride and selfishness in the colonies. But then, when they requested returns for this mercy, they found themselves only rebuke. then turning to cruelty in extremes. They cultivated so much fear that they destroyed what love was once fondly held in the ports of New England. They destroyed the stability of their empire by entering into an unnecessary and costly war. Therefore, the object of a princedom is not just power, but also stability. If not in the polis, then in the prince. Yet, according to Machiavelli, one must sometimes sacrifice stability in order to maintain power. But by choosing temporarily undesirable extremes, but without stability, you or your regime will falter. So, if your regime will falter, what is to be done? We find ourselves at the age-old question, is it better to be loved or feared? And Machiavelli, we often forget, says in the affirmative, both, not just one. He says it is safer to be feared than loved if you cannot have both. But he says that both is what is the good. It is the mean, after all. But again, yes, he concedes to fear, out of fear and distrust for the people. Stability would reject such a concession, for it concedes to what is not the good, and stability is constantly balancing towards the good, trying to maintain an upright position, for that is much easier to hold once you achieve it. Stability, thereby being constantly balancing towards, correcting towards the good, thereby leads to a state of respect. Noble princes are men of stability, who are loved and feared. Okay, that was long.